Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first summary episode of the DewatchPod. I am Jorgen Smorgasbord, and with me I have
Jim with a G.
That's right, and to sort of gather our thoughts and recap season 6 of Black Mirror, we're taking it down a notch.
Yeah,
or maybe 3.
We're very leaned back.
Yeah, physically, literally very leaned back.
We are going to be hurting our spines over today's episode, but in a very comfortable way.
Yeah, no, it's going to be worth it.
And with our commentary, we're going to be hurting your metaphorical spines.
That's right.
Of narrative comprehension.
That's right. And, yeah, no, so to start out with, we were thinking we would just sort of gather our thoughts about season 6 of Black Mirror. And we have a confession to make here.
Do we?
Which is, yeah, I want to be honest with the listeners.
Okay,
too.
we can be honest.
So, it's been 2 weeks, and last week we already recorded the first episode of season 5. So we're gonna be tainted a bit, and we're gonna be having a bit of trouble remembering what happened.
It's true. I think also, one thing to say is that we have some slight peeks into the future, but only the slightest one.
Yeah, no. But I guess you should start, because this is the only time we're gonna have you watching a season of Black Mirror you're not familiar with yet.
Yeah, this is my last peek into not being a psychopomp for the rest of this podcast. I think season 6. For a moment, I think we should look back on what we've seen. We have seen Jonas Awful. We have seen
Henry.
Oh, we should alternate. That's a good idea. Beyond the Sea, that's the one.
Macy Day.
Yeah. And Demon 76. And I think if I'm to look back upon my expectations coming into this podcast and whatnot, I think I would have expected this season to be worse. I don't think it's good. But
oh, yeah, no.
I think there are some pretty good episodes, and there are some really bad ones.
Yeah.
Emblematically bad, but also I think on some level my worst fears have not been realized. It is more comfortable mediocrity for the most part.
Yeah, no, and I think that really aligns with my personal vibe as well. Because, I think strangely Jonas Awful is quite emblematic for the season in some ways. Because, it doesn't quite come together, it doesn't quite make perfect sense, but, it's entertaining. And as such, it sort of serves as a synecdoche for the whole season.
Yeah. I think there's a point. I want to call it a synecdoche. I kind of feel like Jonas Awful it's like the core, right? It's the core, and then most of the rest of the season kind of branches out in different directions from it. Because I do think Jonas Awful is very emblematic of the, I suppose, lighter, more comedic side of Black Mirror. But then, it delves into at least attempted darkness.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Jonas Awful is like a good base somehow. I think it's very good at this. It was the first episode we watched. I think it's because you can, if I'm conceptualizing, if I'm doing the mind map in my head, right? You have Jonas Awful as this it's light, it's comedic, it has a lot of different things going on. It's not particularly focused. It's not entirely coherent. It has the archetypical stupid twist.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in the sense where you go, oh, that was a lot of wasted writing, instead of, oh, that makes everything worse.
Yeah, no. But I think in one way it completely stands apart from the rest of the season, which is just the density of writing that it has received and the pacing that sort of it has as a consequence. Because I feel like it's the only fast-paced episode of the season.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up this, right, in the sense, I think the thing that's really hit me about this season is just how much wasted screen time there is. And in a better show, this need not be a mortal sin. it is a little bit of a mortal sin here, though.
Yeah, no, it keeps happening.
Yeah, but even like Demon 76, I would say it goes for a higher pace than some of the worst examples, for sure. But like,
Yeah.
it is still
It's
slow.
relaxed.
Yeah, it's slow. Well, relax is an interesting word. but
It's a terrible word to describe the episode.
it is methodical, right? Like, this is
Yeah.
the good aspect of doing this pacing. But then you have Beyond the Sea, I think, by far the worst example of pacing in the season. And I suspect, like, from my vague memories of the rest of Black Mirror, there's gonna be a lot of this. I think there's gonna be a lot of Charlie Brooker being like, okay, we've established the idea, that has taken 5 minutes. We're then gonna spend another 30 minutes making sure it's, like, entrenched. But it's not gonna add any value.
It's quite bleak.
It is.
Like,
There's one particular episode that I think the pacing... I don't know, I'm very fascinated to see your take on it.
oh, don't threaten me with a bad time.
I will. That's the point of this podcast, Jürgen.
Unfortunately.
For those of you listening who may be doing this after having watched Black Mirror, I'm very excited to see Jürgen tackle Metalhead. I think that's the name. It's like
I
season...
heard that episode.
I think it's like season 3 or 4.
Oh.
So we've got a while to go.
I'm not sure if I should be happy or sad about that. Yeah, no, but, like, I guess sort of just, like, structurally, we do just have a big theme of, like, slow episodes this season, and you're saying that's emblematic of the show as a whole.
Now, I think, like, as we've commented on the episode itself, Beyond the Sea is truly unique in how slow it is. But, like, Loch Henry, Macy Day, those are a bit more, like, in the normal span of what I think of Black Mirror. Because I think, like, if we're gonna cut to the heart here and be unnecessarily personal, I think there's a part of this show's writing team and everything that has confused long, pondering looks at things with depth.
Yeah, no, it sounds to me like the allegation you're making here is that Charlie Brooker has an idea and then he's like, oh, that should be an episode, and he doesn't do a whole lot of work to make it into an episode and play with that idea.
I think there's truth to that, yeah. I think it's like something that like occurs to me, because I've at least talked a lot during this season about, like, does the episode justify its gimmick? Does Beyond the Sea justify having meat bodies being taken over by, like, the robot bodies being taken over by human brains? Does Macy Day justify the celebrity being a werewolf, etc., etc.? Like, overall, Black Mirror, right, is pitched as, like, a technology show, and it has, like, I think it's fine for it to evolve beyond just being about technology. But it is fundamentally like an anthology show that takes, here's a gimmick, right? Like, it throws that into the pitch meeting, and that's where it starts. Which I think is a very cool idea, and I think the earlier seasons can do it quite well. But I think the problem, right, is that, like, for me a little bit when I think about season 6, it feels like multiple of these episodes essentially do we're throwing the gimmick in, and after that, after the most, like, sort of surface, how does this make sense in the world reading, like, literally just how do we physically set this up, we then go back to just having a normal story. Like, to me, that's a little bit about, like, what Beyond the Sea was about, and what its issue was for me is that, like, hey, these guys are in space, and they have robot bodies on Earth. And then we establish that, and then we're like, okay, and the rest is a story about an affair.
Yeah, no, I think sort of my general takeaway so far is that there's two things that are quite at least two things that are quite emblematic of Black Mirror. One is like, we have a cool idea we want to play with. We're a technology show where we do societal criticism, we do cultural commentary.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, there is always going to be a twist. Even when the episode is good, there is a twist. They just happen to pull it off. And I think in the episodes that we like less, I mean, it's mainly Beyond the Sea, because it's a bad one. Those things are at odds with each other, because they're very precious about the twist. So they'd sort of waste time in the middle.
Yeah, like I think it's this idea that like the show clearly gets that cool twists can be cool.
Yeah.
And that's valuable. That's what powered 2000s era movie making. The problem is, they also know twists need to come at the end, or at least further in.
Yeah.
But they haven't really figured out what to do with the in-between space much at all.
They could just pull the twists forward, really.
They could, but I don't think they want to.
No.
I think this is also one of those things, like, I feel like we talked a lot about, like, missed opportunities, right? Like, I think that's the thing. And, like, I think, honestly, if we're going to say something positive, I think it is to the show's credit as a whole that you do start thinking about those missed opportunities, right? Like, it does kick some stuff into gear. But the thing is, it's not like, oh, this episode was good and it could have been a cool another way too. It's, this episode isn't very good and it had so many ways to be good if you explored these themes.
Yeah, no. Are there any other foibles of Charlie Brooker's that we want to rip into right now?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Because if not, I think we're ready to move on to some more thematic through lines. And I think, like, as far as I'm concerned, the most coherent thematic through line I'm seeing in this season is, this shit sucks.
Yeah.
And this isn't, like, fully coherent. But, well, it might be. Let's see where it goes. Because we start with, this shit sucks, tear it down, and, you know, right, that's Joan is awful. And we have a very isolated, consequence, because, you know, the world, very much remains the same. Just two people gain some nice ankle bracelets, and they've made the world a little bit better. And you know, that's fine. That's a starting point, right? And then I would put Loch Henry and Macy Day also in this lineage, because Loch Henry is sort of like the beginning of the embrace of nihilism. Right, we're like, well, what can you do? Like, there's an ambivalence there.
I do, yeah, like, I think there's an interesting thing, right? Because you have a very good point in that. Like, obviously, all writing needs to have a conflict. And I think an interesting thing is that, like, Black Mirror, no matter what it's doing specifically, it does always, like, conflicts do fundamentally start from the inside here, right? Like, our protagonists are in a system, very broadly, and somewhere between them and the system, there is the conflict, right?
Friction.
There's the friction. And I think it's, like, an interesting thing that there is never really an external threat, so much as I think we have a bit of a difference of, like, how internal are we talking, right? Because, like, there's Joan is Awful is essentially, like, a story about a woman who, and really to some extent she is in the system, but, like, not in a thematically coherent way. Like, she's just a corpo.
Yeah.
In the slang of the times. And then she is essentially just violated, like victimized by another corporation, admittedly, but like it's something that doesn't perfectly tie in. So in a sense, like that's kind of external, right? And then you have something like Loch Henry, where it's more the person is perpetuating the system itself, right? And I think that's interesting. Like, I think there's an interesting divide there, because I would say this is, also from my vague recollections, I think this is going to be something of a theme of, like, how much are the protagonists, how much are the characters doing this to themselves? Like, if we look at Demon 76 and Jonas Awful, I think it's actually a very interesting comparison, right? Because Jonas Awful, again, she is essentially just an innocent person living in society, and then this corporation screws over her life, essentially invading it. Demon 76 is interesting, right? Because the protagonist is in the system and is essentially subjugated by it, but at least at the start accepts it. Yeah. And both of these episodes end with burn it all down in very different ways, and I think...
Yeah, no, and that's sort of the arc that I want to paint for this season. Because we go from sort of like the, sort of like isolated burn it down of Jonas Awful to like the nihilism and the fatalism of both Loch Henry and then Maisie Day. Because Maisie Day is like, you know, it's lean into it, baby. Be a girl boss. Be a girl boss, paparazza. And then we like reach sort of like the I mean, I don't want to get too Hegelian here, but like we do reach sort of a point that's like, well, burn it all down, but like it's quite nihilist. Like it still has some of the fatalism in it, because it's not a productive burning down. It's like, it is the end of all things. Like, it's apocalyptic completely. Yeah. And I suppose to like be very on the nose here, you could read it as like, we start a sort of juvenile rebellion, like, fight the power, and then we have the sort of like coming to terms with things. Well, I don't know, let's say that's Charlie Brooker experiencing his middle age, getting dragged into the system of broadcast television, and then, of course, later, streaming television. And then, sort of like, embracing, like, keeping the, like, juvenile rebellion isn't enough. But also, sort of, rekindling some of that rebellious flame and saying, like, oh, no, this is coming down. Because it has to. Right? Because it cannot go on.
I think that's, like, an interesting through line, too, because I think Maisie Day and Loch Henry are the ones that say, no, it absolutely can go on. In fact, I think Maisie Day has an interesting thing about, like, being set in the early 2000s, bit of a weird choice to an extent, for sure. But I think it says, like, you can say, like, yeah, clearly, not only can this go on, it will. This was recent, like, I think there's something to say there, but, like, I think those two are very interesting, because they are a bit on the nose, admittedly, but fundamentally they say, you can subjugate yourself to the system.
Yeah.
That is a choice. You can be subsumed, and it can go on, but it will kill you. Like, it will kill you. Loch Henry, it will kill you emotionally, and Maisie Day...
It will kill your girlfriend, literally, and it will kill... Like, there's... Actually, in both, there's one person who dies, like, spiritually, and one person who dies literally.
I suppose just the central ideas of, like, how you are killed is in, like, where the core of it is, where the emotional core of it is in Loch Henry, it's you are gonna be made flat by the like celebrity culture and media culture, and by the exploitative nature of your work. And in Maisie Day, you're gonna be ripped apart by a werewolf. That's why you shouldn't take exploitative pictures of people. the werewolf's gonna get you.
Yeah, no. I guess that sort of like opens up a very... Well, I think it opens up two questions, actually. One is the sort of anthology question. Because, of course, in an anthology show, they can put these things in whatever order they want. So I think ending on Demon 76 does have quite a bit of punch, because like depending on how these episodes are ordered, like they sort of perform a very different argument. And I guess sort of wanting to be quite charitable, I guess we can see like Charlie Brooker trying to be maybe like, I don't know, maybe I do have some edge. Maybe that is the thing I want to linger with people. The other thing is, and I don't know, maybe this actually fits in here a bit. But of course we do have another episode in the season.
Yeah, I've been struggling with how to fit this into the
framework.
framework.
And I guess there's one very pragmatic way of placing Beyond the Sea in the story, which is the means of episode order, which is that it's just kind of being buried in the middle.
I think if we're gonna keep spinning on this thread, I think there is at least an attempt, if you were to say it this way, that Beyond the Sea is about what happens between people in the system, right? And here, admittedly, and this is where we get back into, does this episode justify its sci-fi aesthetic, is that essentially the system we're talking about here is just patriarchy. You know, like, it's we can talk, I guess, but like, I don't know, to me, the space edge of this doesn't super do too much. Like, you can pull it as being like a metaphor for the military, which we already discussed a bit. But I think fundamentally, like, the system we're talking about in this episode is like patriarchy, about how men treat women, about how women are like accessories to men's emotional lives and their possessiveness, and then to some extent to how like men finally allowing themselves to feel is like the, you know, that's the breakup moment in Beyond the Sea. It's where, and I have no memory of any names here, but it's where the wristless one essentially is like, oh yeah, my wife is a human, and I have emotions too. Like, that's the revelation. Like, that's the moment comparative to Demon 76's, oh, the nukes are hitting the world. And I think, like, from there, like, it's a bit more to me about, like, how people live in the system and what happens between them and other people who are trapped in the same thing. Because I think it's not too hard to conceptualize the other episodes as protagonists against the system or with the system, you know? Whereas, like, in Beyond the Sea, there isn't too much about, like, actually rebelling against it so much or being subsumed with it. It is more, these two people are, three people to some extent, these two people are stuck in it, and that's gonna mess them up. That's gonna mess up their relationships. That's gonna cause some really bad things to happen.
Yeah, no, I guess it does sort of fit in the arc that I'm attempting to construct here, in that sense that it's like, oh yeah, no, we have another nihilist one, and then this one, it's just like, it will turn you foul. It will corrupt you.
Yeah.
Like, you, and even if you're like maybe getting better, like, no, you're not in this alone, and the people with you will be ground down, and they will take you with them.
I suppose there's also an interesting point. Like, if we're taking Mesa Day as you're going to be physically destroyed, and Loch Henry as you're going to be emotionally destroyed, Beyond the Sea is how you're going to destroy others as part.
Yeah.
As like a cog in the machine. As the one who enacts brutal, violent patriarchy. on both your fellow man and woman.
Yeah, no,
and child, which we should remember there is technically a child in that episode.
Well, yeah. No, I like, I don't want to evaluate it too much positively, because it's too long and it's not very good. But, like, in that sense, I guess it does, like, serve a fairly unique point within the season, if you, like, read it as that it's not, because, like, I'm not sure I actually agree with you in the sort of posing Loch Henry and Macy Day as opposed, because both of them have, like, physical and spiritual death represented. So they hit similar notes in my mind. So the new threat that is like, no, it's gonna make you evil, that Beyond the Sea brings in that way, like, it doesn't justify its runtime or its presence enough, but, like, I think it's a welcome addition in that particular sense to the
now that
season.
We are emotionally removed from having to sit for 80 minutes of it. Yeah,
no, I mean, we always record right after watching, and I guess having watched the episode and experienced the episode really negatively colored our opinions of the episode, especially right after the fact. Yeah. And now we can be like, now we can memory hole some of these things.
Yeah, we can mush the entire thing together to an appropriate length in our memories, and that's very welcome.
Well, we can't not, like, there's not that much there.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. There's, like, in my head, that episode is like 10 scenes max.
Yeah, no, like, I guess he has to wear a hat in town once.
That one is one of them. Weirdly enough. But I think there's the, not to stay too long on Beyond the Sea, because I think we can truly get bogged down here.
No, yeah.
But I think one of the unfortunate things is that, like, as much as this analysis can help to some extent to ameliorate its issues, I think there's an unfortunate thing where you could just, as supported by the text, quite frankly, you could just read it as the one guy of the protagonist is just, like, he's just horrible. And he always was horrible, maybe? Like, I don't know. Like, I think there isn't enough of the system corrupting him to make that the obvious reading.
Yeah, no, he's like, they're very isolated people.
Yeah, and like unfortunately, if you say, like, okay, so this episode is about how a horrible psychopath manages to fly under the radar for a while until his possessiveness is discouraged. Yeah, no, it fits. Like, there isn't really anything in the text to disprove that, is there?
Yeah, you could even just be like, oh, yeah, no, this episode is about someone becoming the Joker. But yeah, no, I think we've dwelled enough. I think that's what that analogy strongly reveals. Is there... I suppose the difference I sort of see between Loch Henry and Macy Day is maybe that they're quite different in tone in where they end, because they have very much melancholy in Loch Henry, right? It's like, oh, he's at the party and then he's alone, and that's very filmic,
yeah.
And it's like, it sort of conveys to us more of the weight of, like, becoming a cog, and we get the ambivalence still, whereas Maisie Day sort of, like, is quite gratuitous, and it's it's more interested in sort of a voyeuristic analysis.
Yeah, I actually think the voyeurism and stuff like that, because, like, I will say, I think having watched both of those episodes, Macy Day is awful. And Loch Henry is fine, I think, is roughly where I'd rate them. But together, I do think they elevate each other a little bit. Like, if we're being a bit gracious here. I think one of the things that strike me about especially the endings is just how much they are about the vulgarity of things, right? Like, and we talked a lot about that, about Loch Henry in particular. Yeah. But I think it's such an interesting thing, right? Because we have Macy Day, whose protagonist and whose main characters are essentially these, like, pretty low class, right? Like, they were talking about, like, renting, like, a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate, like, barely making rent each month. Like, it is, like, a low class sort of thing. Whereas Loch Henry, like, sure, they're not wealthy by any means, but they're a little bit more of the, like, refined somehow, like the auteur, the starving artist vibe. And, like, they are recording these horrific events that are very serious, and Macy Day starts with the protagonist, you know, like, being on the street as her colleagues, like, just yell slut or whore to, like, this female celebrity, and there's, like, punching and, like, all of that, right? Like, I think there's a very interesting contrast there. The very much comes across in the mood as well, and also I think in particular how it ends, right? Because yes, you have this melancholy, right? You have the moment where both of them essentially say, this is horrible, like, this sucks, I hate being part of all of this, but it's what I have. And in one of them is in a blood-splattered cafe littered with bodies, and the other's alone in a dark hotel room, having just listened to all of this, like, high culture, fashionable, dramatic, like, cinema industry stuff.
Yeah, no, and I think that sort of speaks a little bit to Loch Henry's, like, complete aversion towards having, like, violence as a source of tension on screen. Because, like, when you put them together, you can be like, well, and yet these are the same. And, you know, I don't know, I'm sort of coming around to this season on account of it, like, fitting together in a way that I've made up in my mind.
I think, yeah, like, the interesting thing is, I think listen, I don't mean to speak for you too much, but as two people who are fundamentally at least a little bit pretentious, being given more material is always good in that sense, right? And a lot of the issue, I think, with being unable to make much interesting out of these episodes is that they're so slow. And that so little ends up being presented over such a long time.
Yeah, no, but I wonder, like, do we think the, like, arc, like, the sort of, like, almost Hegelian synthesis analysis of this season, like, holds any water?
I think my thought about that is that it's less about them having that as a general concept, and more that, like, these are things Charlie Brooker is interested in. And there's nothing wrong with that at the core. I take issue with execution.
Yeah.
But, like, fundamentally, here's the thing about Black Mirror, to me at least. Charlie Brooker is an interesting person, and he has interesting ideas. And when you're making an anthology series that's this, at least from the start, stylistically distinct, I think it's gotten a bit more bland over the seasons, and perhaps other...
That's Netflix, yeah.
Yeah, and other shows as well have tapped into it, and there's the transactional model going on here. But fundamentally, it being about Charlie Brooker and what he finds interesting is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
As long as you control your foibles, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's quite evident, isn't it? Because, like, the episode we ended up liking most had a co-writer.
Yes. And, like, that's the thing, right? Like, there are so many examples of these that in our private lives we've discussed, where, like, you can see, like, oh, there is something going on with this person who is much maligned by us. As long as someone is there to be like, interesting idea, but what if we tweaked it a little bit? Or Or, also perhaps someone to just be like, no, that's really stupid.
Yeah, no, I think Charlie Brooker as a writer just might need a bit of disciplining.
I think so, and I think, I think that's, an interesting on a much higher level, right? That, as, creative people, writers, directors, everything like that, the one thing that is most hated of all is the editor. But it is a part of the process.
Yeah.
It hurts, but it has to be done.
Yeah, no, and I think the absence of an editor is also sort of shining through in the preciousness with the twists.
Mm.
And I think there is definitely a little bit of a runaway auteur showing his flaws in this season for sure.
Yeah, because Black Mirror, when it came to Netflix, was a huge hit, right? This is, what is this, 2015 thereabouts? 2014?
I don't know.
Oh, we should probably know this if we're making a podcast about it. Whatever.
Well,
we can.
We'll know it when we get there.
Yeah, or we can just have editing Jorgen come in and be like, anyway, so as we all know, Black Mirror happened in insert year here. But yeah, I think there's some truth to this that the success of this hits way too hard when it comes to being oh no, just let him do whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think to strike a bit of a different chord though, I want to talk about the title a bit and how it impacts, or how well it represents the show. Because, Black Mirror promises to be interested in technology. And I don't know if that's something I see that much in the season.
No, that's the interesting part, right? Because, if we were to go through it, Joan is Awful, Beyond the Sea, those two are very technological.
Yeah.
And then on the complete other side, we have, I think the least interest is Demon 76. And then Mesa Day, because at least with Mesa Day you can make some sort of argument about photography has created this. It's weak, but there's some technology at hand. And then you have Loch Henry that is, in a sense, technological, but it's more fundamentally a social phenomenon of people getting into true crime. Because there's nothing of this that couldn't theoretically have happened with someone writing this in a book, right?
Yeah, no, I suppose it is sort of about the social technologies that accompany our modern age, but as such it is I mean, what strikes me is that the episodes that are nominally interested in technology don't have something particularly distinctive to say about technology, right? Because, I think Demon 76 is sort of a very good foil here, because it's fundamentally very uninterested in technology, and it still hits a lot of the same beats and better, for the most part, maybe even. So, I just wanted to flag that. I don't know if there's...
Yeah, going off of that, I think there's an interesting thing here, because, when I think of, how this season has handled technology in the, quite literal sense, you have Joan is Awful and Beyond the Sea is the most technological one. And Beyond the Sea, which I will try to go through this quickly, there's a suspension of disbelief thing here, where it's it is a bit weird that you didn't just put the robots on the ship, but whatever. But apart from that, it decouples from it very quickly that this is something about technology. Because fundamentally, it's not. It doesn't even have that much of an effect on the episode. Sure, the murder and, stuff like that would have been harder without that conceit. But it absolutely could have happened, and it wouldn't really have affected things. Joan is Awful, to me, is an interesting contrast, because it absolutely really hard starts with this is about technology and generative content and exploitation, and then it just gets way too goofy very quickly for us to be yeah, this relates to real life use of AI or whatever. Like, it's just like,
Yeah.
it becomes a caper, and it's very, like, in a sense, you could say it's self-aware about that, but it also does, undermine its thing about, this is about a real technology.
Yeah, no, that's... And here's the thing, right? And unfortunately, I too am guilty of the sin of not researching things that would be interesting to mention. But, like, Charlie Brooker, like, names something that is, like, extremely real in this episode, which is that, like, TV executives are somehow convinced that you want to see yourself on TV. Right, that's something that pops up absolutely constantly when these people talk about AI. They're like, oh, wouldn't you love to see yourself be the protagonist in Star Wars? And, I mean, that's just very funny, and... and, like, he doesn't really lean into this, like, extremely, like, specific, hard hit he's getting, and it makes me wonder, like, Did he somehow incept these people with this idea, or did he like represent something that was already like nascently there?
Like, I think one interesting thing about Charlie Brooker is that I do genuinely, on some level, think that he is fairly well attuned to people's reactions to technology.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he's fairly well attuned to technology,
No.
but overall, I do think he can capture feelings about it in a very, like, often literalized sense, as in Jonas Awful, I think, is quite a good example of that, actually. But, like, I do think he has the finger on the pulse of the tech feelings, at least. And I think a part of that probably does go into, like, I don't fundamentally think that Charlie Brooker thinks that tech CEOs are good,
No.
I think he's probably a little bit restrained in how much he can do with that, just for the pressures of the industry and whatnot. But I think it leaks through, and I think that's like something interesting to tackle, right, for him personally.
Yeah, and then they force him to call it Streamberry and not Netflix.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like it's... But in this way, we have like Jonas Awful at once like hitting something that is like actually extremely current, and then being sort of veering aside into hyperbole.
I think there's an interesting question, is like, Jonas Awful, I genuinely wonder if they ended up having too much fun. Like, like they're in the writer's room and someone goes like, yeah, and what if she then goes into a church and starts shitting? And I was like, that's funny. And then just like, slowly this gets pulled further and further. And then, at the end they're like, we ended up producing a heist movie. Oops.
Yeah, no, it's... I can't fault it too much for... not being a drab Black Mirror episode.
I think the weird thing is that Jonas Awful, to me, under my little conspiracy theory here, might be the most humanizing episode for the writers and the team who makes Black Mirror, because they're like, I can see how you would go off topic with this, like you would just get a bit too into it and have too much fun with it. I think it's honestly like, it's weird, because you can definitely say that it's in a sense very safe and like doesn't say much, but simultaneously it is very charming in how clearly they loved doing it. They loved having Salma Hayek on set and writing all of this about Salma Hayek.
Yeah, no, they loved having Salma Hayek so much. But I think that's actually another connection I want to make, like the escape into hyperbole sort of bookending the season, right? Because Jonas Awful, like, really, really, like, jumps the shark. And I don't mean this in the, like, derogatory way necessarily, though that is actually probably also true. But, like, it jumps the shark, like, in, like, being critical, because it's, like, very literally smashed the system. And then we have... like the sort of like fantasy in Demon 76, like giving a layer of remove to like the apocalypse. And I think that's not like quite as egregious, but it sort of gives a similar layer of protection from like the thing they might be saying. even if it's a bit less clear. And I think that's it's like the big contrast obviously is like Henry, the like completely like fantasy and fictional technology free episode. But yeah, no, it's oh yeah, look, Henry even has like regular Netflix mention instead of Streamberry.
Oh my god, you're right. Yeah, I think we pointed this out too.
Yeah. Though I forget if that's just an error or not. But yeah, no, like so. But I guess the sort of division gets kind of torn apart by Maisie Day, because Maisie Day very much also employs fantasy to quite an extreme. So I suppose I can't really say they're too afraid to say like this is unsustainable, this will burn down, you should burn it down. Because they do tend to sort of operate in that mode anyway.
You know, like, it's interesting to think about it, because, like, reflecting on what I feel about a lot of Black Mirror, from my memory at least, the thing that sticks out to me is that it rarely does to burn it all down. A lot of it, to me, is about, I guess, to an extent, there are some episodes that are perhaps a bit more positively spin as learning to live in the system and finding meaning. A lot of them, though, are very bleakly like, the system will go on, the system will subsume you, like, this technology will just eat us up into itself, and that will be it. So in a sense, I think Season 6 is actually quite revolutionary in how much it goes for burning it all down. Yeah. Or even, to some extent, with Beyond the Sea, having it all collapse.
Yeah,
in a sense.
And I don't know, I guess I'm tempted to recall again you saying like Charlie Brooker has the finger on the pulse of the zeitgeist.
Yeah, that's an interesting reflection and combination.
Yeah, no, like I think, I don't know, maybe it's not coming from him, but he's just like, maybe he still has it in like some ways.
Yeah, maybe. I think this is something we should definitely come back to when we do future season summaries. Like, how much has this changed? How much of the previous seasons are more about the subjugation, and how much of this is the more revolutionary aspect, I suppose. Like,
yeah,
because in my head, like, you can describe Joan is Awful and Team 76 as a lot of things, but I don't think you can describe their endings as melancholic
or liberal. Well, I guess Joan is Awful is strangely liberal, but not necessarily in a passive way.
Elaborate, please.
Well, it sort of manages to pair like the we should tear this down with the like, but life will go on in a very strange manner.
It does have the, like, extrapolating it a bit, to me it does have a little bit of the feeling of like, you can just take out the one bad thing in society and the rest will go on normally, you know?
Yeah, no, and like, I'm genuinely wondering like how much this season is like, and I'm struck by how much the season is enhanced for me by Team 76 being the ending, because it's so uncompromising in playing with like radical ideas.
Yeah.
But I'm proud that I'm like quite happy that they put it at the end, because like it frames things very nicely.
And it gives you hope for the future of us doing this podcast.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't go that far. I think there's 2 episodes that were pleasant to watch in the season.
Okay. Which ones?
1 and 5, like the beginning and the end. No, that might be sort of my own predilections shining through. And like I didn't like hate Loch Henry particularly, and like Maisie Date was like entertainingly bad.
Okay.
But Beyond the Sea being just drag. But like,
I think you have to give marketing a lot of credit for putting Beyond the Sea in the middle, I think. Because by that point, you're invested, and also, it's only 2 episodes left after this, you can keep going.
Yeah, no, like, I'm genuinely, like, so entranced by the episode order, like, genuinely probably elevating this season by its structure so massively, and maybe you could have just dropped Beyond the Sea.
There's some truth to that.
I
can certainly, send it back for a rework at minimum. I like for all. I think I really do feel like we've done a lot to actually make Beyond the Sea sound better. It's a stunning thing. Like,
yeah.
Listen, we all come into this with our own biases. But, like, I think you can't fault us as regards for not trying to find meaning in the episodes we watch.
Yeah.
Like, we are at it. We are pawing the dirt. We are
the meaning machines.
Truly.
But yeah, no, like, I think, I don't know, I'm honestly quite surprised with how positive of a view this sort of like bird's eye view leaves me with.
Yeah, I think it's also going to be interesting because, and admittedly we've already seen 1 episode of the next season, but like my memory of season 5 is that as a season it is completely incoherent. Like there is nothing, and there's probably something once we do our digging through the dirt, but on the outside my distinct memory is that like, wow, these are 3 episodes from completely different shows. And I think that can be a strength of the anthology format, but I do think season 5, to my memory, to my psychopomp memory, it does stretch that a bit.
Well, I guess that's some interesting foreshadowing for our dear listeners. Do we have any closing thoughts?
I think we should do like a rapid fire of like small Charlie Brooker tropes to watch out for. Because I think we flagged that clearly affairs are of interest.
Yeah, weirdly so. Like, I don't think that really fits into the larger picture that much, but he's like, yeah, but what if?
Ooh.
What if someone else were to enter the picture?
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think about like character archetypes, and I think a little bit of the put upon everyman is like a central part, right? Like there's always a person, or at least frequently, a person at the center who's a bit, even to an extent, bumbling, but then has someone else come in and be like, no, you have to do this crazy thing. Yeah, you should get back into paparazziing. You should get back...
Almost get through it.
Almost. You should, like, what else do we have? Like, we should do this true crime thing instead of going to the Eggman. I guess Jonas Awful is a bit weird, right? Because she's uniquely terrible, right? As a person to an extent here, as part of the plot.
I guess that's left a bit ambiguous.
True, yeah, actually. There's a good point there. But, like, Demon 76 is very upfront about how, like, this person would be content is too much to say, but she would, if left to her own devices, continue existing as she did forever. So I think there is like these people exist, and then there is someone who has to push them into things a lot.
I suppose this is a bit more conceptual, but just like throwing stuff at the wall and then walking away.
Like purely physically, we're talking?
Huh?
Purely physically?
Oh no, conceptually, absolutely conceptually.
Okay.
Because he just likes to drop ideas that are probably more interesting than the episode he's writing.
Yeah. I think Charlie Brooker is British, so this one isn't really a trope so much as it's a cultural affectation, but I think, like, fast-talking, loud witticisms back and forth is a little bit of a thing. Very prominent in Loch Henry with our dear, non-politically correct bartender.
What a character.
He's up there, honestly, so far. I think we need to talk about good characters at some point.
Oh man, what about the, I want to say, vegan roommate?
Yeah, it's powerful, right? I think, like, that's another thing, is that, like, Charlie Brooker could have been... Okay, this is way too mean, but I'm gonna power through. He could have been a political cartoonist. Like, because there is a little bit of, like, I'm gonna get them by having, like, a really pathetic person. Or, like, a really, like, flamboyantly shitty person, as in, like, the ending of Loch Henry with the, like, media personalities.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, he does hate being in media a bit, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like, he hates his peers.
I think that's also a bit of a finger on the pulse of his own nation.
Yeah, no. Oh gosh, this reminds me actually, because one sort of interesting way to compare Loch Henry and Maisie Day is the Britain versus America thing.
I had a thought about that, yeah.
Because, like, Britain is sort of shown as the place where, you can be a struggling artist, like, you can, and it'll be fine. Whereas America, it's like, oh yeah, no, you're scraping fucking by the skin of your teeth, alive as hell.
Yeah.
And, fair enough, right? But, like, I just want to flag, like, Britain is more deprived than America. Like, as a country. Like, it is poorer. Like, the poor in Britain...
But that's not the attitude.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely not. Like, it's completely counterfactual, because, like Britain, like the non-London zones, or like on the development level of like Bulgaria, and as a whole, it's like sort of on par with like the poorest states in the US.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, but the US is the like really down and dirty, struggling nation. Like there is a bit of sort of national obscurantism there.
I can see that, yeah. We are recording this after the election, by the way, so,
Oh yeah, the British election.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, no, because the Trump's second term is still coming up.
Yeah. Man, this is... We should not go too deep into this.
Yeah, no, but like he's there. So I guess like there. I wonder if his sort of national stereotypes will be a bit of a running thing, because I feel like Loch Henry and Maisie Day really have been the two standouts.
I think even just on a micro level, you can see that between the two protagonists of Loch Henry, right? Like, I do think Charlie Brooker just like artistically conceptualized as America as like take Britain and like Flanderize it somehow, which I think is very interesting.
And like, the vulgarity thing, he's like, oh yeah, no, this may be bad, but it being American is even worse, right? Like, America is sort of like a stand-in for like vulgarity.
Other trope, I have noticed, especially in this season, Charlie Brooker loves the like slow, just awkward conversation scenes where it's just like no one's really enjoying themselves, but they're all there by the social contract. Loch Henry was really big on that. And like, I don't know if I can connect this to anything. I just think it's like, it's a bit of an artistic affectation of like the, fixed camera shot slightly far away as like people are sitting around a table or something like that, and just like there is a bit of cringeness to that I think he likes.
Honestly, it's like violence against me personally. Like, I have a very hard time watching that. Like, it's tough.
Yeah, I'm pondering it in my head, and I feel like that is also a part of the like Britain-America distinction. That is like To him, that is emblematic of his own culture. Yeah. I don't know, do we have anything final to flag? Perhaps for future seasons we should look out for? Oh yeah, I think something I mentioned earlier was like, I'm curious about how Charlie Brooker views the suburbs or like the city, like, because something I remember making a note of during Beyond the Sea is like, the bad astronaut whose family gets killed is from like very kitschy, modernistic suburbs.
He's a metropolitan.
Yeah, and
he's a bit queer. He's a bit horny.
And the good one is from this like idyllic countryside, and he's chopping lumber. It's like I am flagging that a little bit to look into how Charlie Brooker views urbanization.
I guess to keep bearing down on Beyond the Sea.
Yes, absolutely. Let's go.
Like we also will want to keep an eye out for gender because Beyond the Sea is as much as it is about anything about gender. So I wonder if that was like prefaced in anything, if that like happened before, or if that is like sort of him running out of steam a bit.
I guess we'll see. Yeah. I think there isn't too much gender analysis to do in the rest of this season.
No.
But there's definitely some to come in the next.
Yeah. Yeah, no. But obviously like the big things we'll look out for are also like how key technology is or isn't, how relevant it is to the plot, and just how much he butchers the episode in service of the twist.
Yeah, we did have like a proto idea for this summary where we'd be like ranking which of the twists are the worst, which was a bit too vulgar for us. Yeah. But it's definitely something we'll be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, no, I think those are sort of the big things, and I'm running out of small things now.
Yeah, I think that'll become more apparent as we go on, right? Where we're like, this is a lot like that previous episode where that happened.
Yeah, or rather that future episode.
Ooh.
We're in the...
One season, how do we feel about that?
Honestly, like, I think the show is definitely enhanced massively by trying to get something from it.
I think so too. It's like, whatever else you can say about the show, it throws out stuff.
Yeah, no, and, if you have someone to talk about, and if you commit yourself with a blood oath to wring blood from the stone every episode and find some theme that you think it might be about, I think you sort of put yourself in a position where you're going to be analytically active in a way that's, if nothing else, good for yourself.
I think so too. I think there's going to be a lot of fun things, and we now have some threads dangling for the future.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I really want to keep an eye out for episode order, like we've already said. Because, like, I am astounded by how much this reflection has, like, enhanced the season for me.
That's a good idea to do, yeah, for sure.
And, yeah, no, that's it, I think.
Yeah, so let us clink the teacups that we brought into this.
Yeah, because we've been having cozy tea.
Cozy time.
Yeah, and next time, because we've already recorded it, we will of course be putting it out in the correct order.
Striking Vipers.
Yeah.
Where it all began.
Yeah. No, this podcast, and we'll repeat that, was conceived when we were talking about striking vipers for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten more about the episode than I remember, but
well, I think the one thing we can say is, like, bisexuals, tune in next week.
Yeah. No, bisexuals, watch Striking Vipers.
Yeah. This is some Dune level shit going on.
Yeah, no. Behold the Genesis next week.
Behold the Genesis.
And thank you for listening.